Donnie McPhee here with the National Tree Seed Centre of Canada. We're in Gemsag, New Brunswick, September 20th, and we're out collecting bur oak. The bur oak are just coming in. They're just ripe, so on the tree you'll see they're still a little bit green, but there's some on the ground and some on my tail you'll see after that they're fully ripe. One of the things you got to be watch out for is you're always going to see squirrel and blue jay damage. So what that is the animal sort of testing to see if they're ripe, because once they're ripe they turn a little bit sweeter. So again, because they're just coming in, seeing lighter color, if the acorn is loose in the cup, that's a good indication that it's ripe. So that one was nice here. Now we can move along, and I'm just really feeling it. So this one here, still tight when I push it, so not quite ripe yet. I'm going to leave it. Moving along again, tight in the cap. Going to leave it here. And sometimes it's a little bit of hit or miss, and we'll just move along here and see what we find. Again, nice and loose in the cap, nice and ripe. So sometimes, you know, with a species like bur oak, we always say wait for that color change. Well, a lot of the color has started to change on them, and once they start to turn brown on a tree, that usually indicates that the whole tree is going to be ready. If we left this for 3 or 4 days, these are going to ripen up because it's supposed to be nice and sunny, and we'd probably lose the entire crop to squirrels, jays, and then deer and bear come in at night and clean up the ground. So that's why we're collecting. I think we're perfect timing right now. So again, as you look in the bucket here, you know, the 50% of those are turning brown, the others getting nice and yellow, good indication that they're ready to go. The caps on these ones, that first tree, they're almost at the halfway point, but not quite. So the acorns kind of pop right out, what we were showing earlier, when they're ripe. However, on this here particular tree, the caps almost totally enclose the acorn, so it's really hard to push them. So now we're kind of relying on that color, knowing that they're ripe. Still on the tree, nice brown color, but because the cap is so tight and it's almost covering 2/3 of the acorn, they're not going to easily pop out. But again, if I put a little bit of pressure, okay, and I peel this away, you'll see that the acorn actually is loose in there. So in that situation, a lot of times what we're looking for are the jays and the squirrels to cut. So when I look down on the ground here, I'm finding where the jays and squirrels cut on all the acorns down, and then what they're going to do is come down to the ground and they're going to work to pop them out of the cup. So, you know, that genetic variability makes your collecting sometimes a little more challenging.
So when I'm here collecting on the ground, I'm inspecting all the different acorns that I'm picking up to make sure that there's no insect holes in them or that there's any mold growing on them. I want to avoid that. With mold, it can make the rest of your seed lot moldy. So there's also many that have cracks, and you want to avoid those because they're not going to store very well. And they're probably going to, again, go rotten inside. So I'm inspecting each one before I grab them. In this particular tree, they already, they don't have the caps off. So it's pretty easy to spot them. It's a little different than red oak. Red oak, you don't want the caps on them, but with bur oak, it's completely okay. So we collected the bur oak a little green, a little unripe, and what we can do to after ripen it is put the acorns into plastic bags, into poly bags, and by doing this it will start to brown up a little bit, and we do it to keep the moisture in because oak is a recalcitrant seed, so that means we can't let it dry out too much. So when putting it in the plastic bag, we keep it moist, and it also lets the gases stay with the acorns to help it ripen. And we've had this bur oak in the bag for about a week. So now what we're doing is we're taking the caps off so we can do a float test to remove any empty or parasitized or bad acorns. So I'm using what we call a scupula, but you could use a spoon or any other metal implement to remove the cap. And when we're removing the cap, we want to be a bit careful. The acorn should come out very easily without too much fight. The only reason we're using a tool is because, again, with the bur oak, the cap encapsulates the entire acorn, so it doesn't just fall out on its own. But if the cap is fighting to stay on the acorn, we're going to leave it because it's not ready. But in this case, they're falling out quite easily. The other thing you want to be careful is when removing the caps is that you can see on the top of the acorn, we have this tan color. And if any of this top of the acorn is getting ripped off when we're taking off the cap, that means it's not ripe yet. And that can be very damaging to the seed itself. So once we remove all the caps on these acorns, we're going to put them in a bucket of water and do a float test.